Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I'm going to talk about the new evolutions and upgrades that have just gone live in North America. So this is going to be a tremendously long video, so I highly recommend you utilize the timestamps if you're trying to find a particular card. And I'm going to be talking reasonably fast because there's so much to cover. So first things first, we have new giant gems. Giant gems come in all colors, and there's just a new evolution material that's just a step up from the huge gems. Basically, 5 huge fire gems can make 1 giant fire gem. I don't know what they're going to name the next bigger thing. Maybe it'll be massive. But either way, look in the Monster Exchange tab and see what options you have available. And now we talk about the new evolution. So, Albrecht has a new weapon assist for his green form, but it is pretty nice, but I feel like it's not going to be the most pursued form. So, Awakenings-wise, they're obviously well-tailored for mono-wood teams. If there's a devil spawn or a notable devil spawn, this is obviously going to make a much bigger difference. The active skill gives you an attack buff, an RCV, and a movement time buff, along with 3 turns of damage reduction. So, as a whole, like a universal buffer with a shield can be quite powerful, especially if it's inherited onto a low enough cooldown card where you could actually take advantage of it. 12 turns cooldown may be a little hard to actually utilize well, but at the same time, I feel like Albrecht, if you do have one, the blue form is definitely going to be the best form to pursue because they're just arguably the best cleric for water at this point. And now we come to Aten, and Aten has received many different colors, and I think all they did was took the same art and just changed the color scheme. Everything's identical, but that's okay. So, for the red form, all the forms are going to be obviously a preference to rainbow because that's kind of what Aten did. So, red form can have potentially 3 5-attribute awakenings with killers, so monstrous amounts of personal damage potentially, which is kind of like Aten's signature thing, but they lack skill boost, so just be mindful of that fact that you won't have enough skill boost if you need to transform and or leader swap your cards. So for red Aten, you have the ability to remove orb blocks, make 3 of every type of orb, including hearts and poison and jammers. Kind of wild, kind of crazy. It's a 2-turn cooldown. No skill boost makes it harder to justify, and I feel like the other colors are more meaningful. For the blue A10, they can function as a healing solution due to these enhanced hard orbs. They have double 10 combo potentially with a devil killer. Their active skill gives themselves personal damage along with damage reduction for 3 turns on a 5-turn cooldown. So you can have quite a high uptime on your shields, and if you do have Alexander and you do love to use him as a leader, God type cards with healing solution is important because they're 9 times health, 1 times recovery. A10 can potentially fill that niche if you need it for blue, and it covers blue and light if those are colors that are problematic. You need to cover all the colors as Alexander because you do color swap constantly. It could be problematic. So point of the matter is A10 in the blue form I think can be a strong healing solution for Alexander because they at least bring damage reduction. And as a general statement, a card needs to bring one of the following to truly be relevant, I feel, as an active skill. They need to have some sort of damage reduction, damage absorption cancellation, maybe attribute absorption cancellation, buffing, time recovery, or attack, or a cleric style role. Those are the main archetypes that you need to have in order for a card to truly help out a given team, because you need to tend to bring those mechanics all the time in virtually every given dungeon. So A10 is at least covering one of those aspects. Green A10 is going to be the A10 that many people get incredibly excited for. And the reason for this is because they have strong personal damage, which is just a theme for A10. Their active skill is beautiful in the sense that it's a 12-turn cooldown with skill charge, which means you can get it down to 6. And the active skill itself gives you an attack buff based on the number of enhanced combos on the team for 7 turns. So it's an attack buff that rainbow teams needed that is loopable. Loopable buffing is important because when you think about it, that's what kind of made like Royal Oak Nautilus so strong. You always have this permanent attack buff. A10, assuming you don't get attack buff overwritten, will allow you to actually have this permanent attack buff in his green form. So definitely quite meaningful overall, along with strong personal damage and a useful super awakening through super blind resist. But the fun doesn't stop there. A10 does lack skill boost, which can be a bit of a problem, but they give you a 7x6 board. And with their balance typing, they are a great sub for Valentine's Ideal, because Valentine's Ideal doesn't need to transform or leader swap immediately. It's nice if they do, but A10 has a reasonable leader skill at least in this form, and then paired with one of the Valentine's Ideal, you have a bulky leader skill as well. So there's a good chance you can tank hits at least at the beginning of the dungeon until you swap in your other Valentine's Ideal. pretty strong card for that specific usage over there. And if you do have Valentine's Ideal and you like their playstyle, A10 is definitely going to be a wonderful addition to the team. Just be mindful of the fact that they don't have any skill boosts, which is the theme for A10s. And then finally for Dark A10, they have a copious amount of time extends, large amounts of personal damage to these potentially 3/5 attribute awakenings, and then the active skill gives you board unlock, RCV buffing, and bonus personal damage for A10 themselves. If you need RCV buffing, this is obviously going to be a great solution, because remember, with a 2-turn cooldown, you have the advantage of, inheriting something over top of it to use it at the beginning of a dungeon. Again, be mindful of the fact that you do not have any skill boosts, and the A10 color you choose to pursue will come down to which type of rainbow team you're using most at this point in time. Next is Super Reincarnated Michael, and Super Reincarnated Michael has no skill boosts without a Super Awakening, which is kind of wild when I think about it, but their Awakenings are quite strong, especially for mono wood teams. You have double 10 combo VDP, and in my opinion, for non-rainbow teams, this is the best distribution of offensive Awakenings, because you have great personal damage against all spawns of any match, and then when you VDP, you deal meaningful damage and actually can kill the void spawns. So I feel like Michael is definitely more of a co-op-y style card in the sense that, you don't need those skill boosts as much in co-op, and none of his personal damage is impacted by co-op, which does give a bit of an edge there. The main problem with Michael is their active skill doesn't solve anything. Remember that list I said at the beginning of the video where you need to have shield, various buffing, cleric style active skill, absorption cancellation, things like that. Michael doesn't bring any of that. They're just an orb changer with healing and an 8-turn cooldown to boot. If it was a very low cooldown, that's okay. We can inherit something over top of it and we're good to go. So I feel like Michael just missed the mark a bit in terms of their active skill. Great awakenings, especially in co-op. Quite excited in co-op for them. But the active skill just really doesn't do enough for, this current state of the game. Strong for sure, but not where we want them to be. Nephthys has triple VDP and blob and combo orb, so they can work well in these blob VDP oriented style teams. They can get nice super awakenings as well. For their active skill, they give a personal attack buff for themselves and an attack buff for the entire team, along with removing orb blocks and changing the bottom row to dark. The attack buff for the entire team, I think, is a little underwhelming because, for the most part, mono dark teams all have a way to boost their attack. If you have Mojito, you have Yuji, you have Toguro, you have Blackbird. I think all of those give an attack buff, and those are probably going to be your leaders in most cases. So Nephthys doesn't really fit on those teams particularly well with this type of active skill, because you end up just becoming an orb changer. And again, orb changing is not enough at this point in time. Next is Lu Bu, and Lu Bu, prior to his super reincarnated form, was a great farming leader, easy to utilize, big damage when you're below half health. This new form requires a bit more brain power, and I say a bit more brain power because you need to match 2 or more dark combos. So you can't just make a row and swipe or a full board and swipe. So I use Lu Bu quite a bit with myself when I self co-op swipe farming, say Super Snow Globe, limited time dungeon. I have a Gung Ho Bilal on one side, I have a Lu Bu in their regular reincarnated form on the other side, and I can swipe full Satan boards or just rows. It gives me that ease of play, but with Super Reincarnated Lu Bu, you cannot do that, but they can still function as a great farming leader, assuming you can have 6 Dark Orbs every single turn. So, if you look at their awakenings, they have an attack well below 50% for Super, and then 2 already. So 3 of those is 8 times with a 10 combo. 8 times 5 is 40 times personal damage. Holy fish cakes, that's a lot of damage. And they have a dark sub-attribute, which means the dark sub-attribute will be dealing a meaningful amount of damage. Furthermore, they have 3 enhanced dark combos, and with 2 leaders, you have 6 enhanced dark combos. And you have to make 2 dark combos anyway, so you are going to have huge amounts of personal damage. I've seen people utilize Garus and Lu Bu for farming TA3. It definitely can work quite well overall, especially if you have lots of Garus who are already leveled up and ready to go. And they can deal so much damage. The active skill itself is just a monstrous attack buff, which is going to ensure that their sub-attribute does hit massive amounts of damage. So as a farming leader, they require a bit more brain power, like I said, for 2 dark combos. If you just only need them for swipe farming, you have Satans, you have Chuans, etc., the other Lu Bu form will work better for yourself. Next is Echidna, and Echidna, or Mitsunari, I feel like they can be a potential Susanoo alternative if you don't need skill boost as much, because their active skill does give you damage reduction, and that's what we want. We want damage reduction. It also gives you a board changer, which is obviously strong, but unlike Susanoo, they have much more personal damage. They have the combo orbs, which is beautiful for Nautilus teams. It just makes it so much easier when you have monstrous amounts of combos all the time. You have 777 combo VDP, so strong personal damage there. And that means, in a sense, their Super Awakenings are not mandatory. So again, this could be a strong co-op sub because their Super Awakenings is not vital to their success. It's nice if you have an extra 7 combo or Super Jammer Resist, but I feel like they definitely can function well. But at the same time, Susanoo does provide more skill boost and a Super Blind Resist, so they do have an edge there. I feel like this card would be more of a co-op-y style card for myself, at least. Light Metatron has received a new evolution, and they are a God-type card with the Enhanced Heart Orb Awaken, which means, again, Alexander, if you need a healing solution, Light Metatron can fulfill that role, but in addition to respectable personal damage of 4 3-attribute or potentially 5 3-attribute awakenings, she does have a Cleric-style active skill, which is nice, along with an attack buff for only sub-cards. The main drawback of Light Metatron is no skill boosts. Like, this VDP shouldn't be there. Make that a skill boost plus a little bit more feasible. But again, Alexander does need to have 30 skill boost to transform. So this could be a little bit problematic overall, I feel, of Light Metatron. For Antares, they received their reincarnated form. They have Blob, they have VDP, Combo Orb. So your Blob-based style teams, say you have Genois, can work well. There's Super Awakenings. They can have double Blob. Like, think about it. Holy fish, you swipe 12 times 12, 144 times personal damage. Like, what the fish? That's an incredible amount of damage overall. But unfortunately, the active skill, again, misses the mark. It doesn't solve problems. It gives you 1 turn of haste, takes hazards away, does heal you, but it doesn't solve problems. And I think that's the biggest problem overall. Like, you need to solve solutions. So I don't feel like I could justify them inclusion on a team, along with the fact that they have 0 skill boosts. Again, hard to work onto a team. Spica falls into the exact same category. No skill boosts. They do have personal damage, but again, like, it's hard to squeeze them in. And again, the active skill doesn't solve problems. And that's just unfortunate. Like, they could have been a little bit more viable potentially. Denbola received a weapon assist, and all the Antares and Algedi, they all receive similar weapon assists in terms of the awakenings. They have an enhanced combo for their respective color, a cross awakening, and the active skill gives you a Jammer Skyfall buff for 1 turn, and a big shield. This Jammer Skyfall buff can be used to overwrite any existing poison or Jammer Skyfall debuff that was given by opposing spawns, so it can be a way to overwrite them if you don't have surges, or you get Awoken Bound and then this occurs. It can be a way to, you know, actually utilize this. Interesting aspect in that regards, but highly situational weapon assists for the 3 of them overall. But hey, it's an easy to make weapon assist. But speaking of easy to make weapon assists, Alcyone and Hamal both have incredible weapon assists now. So easy to make, doesn't require huge or giant gems. It has a skill boost, a killer, and like some stat boosts. And that's not bad from an awakening point of view, but the active skill gives you 2 times attack for sub attributes and voids attribute absorption for 3 turns, and then 2 turns of haste on a 14-turn cooldown. Hamal does essentially the exact same thing, except it avoids damage absorption, but it still gives 2 turns of haste. So you have a skill boost, 2 turns of haste with a killer. If that killer is relevant, this weapon assist is suddenly quite a powerful option for your given team, because you give that owning card a significant boost to their damage output and the ability to do a bit more damage beyond the damage cap because of the actual killer awakening. So for a Pantheon card, they have kind of like achieved similar on parness to like top rarity like collab cards like say Amatsu's Loot, which is a skill boost and 2 haste. We have this replicated from a Pantheon card. Yes, the awakenings are different, but this is great value, and I highly recommend you, ladies and gentlemen, do make this weapon assist right now. It's easy to make, low resource investment. There's a good chance you have one of these cards floating in your box. Next are the submarines, watches, robots, whatever you want to call them, the Transformers. They receive weapon assists, and they're pretty wild overall, and they give varying amounts of haste. And we're going to look at how much haste they give in the actual awakening. So for Seawolf, you get an extra 7 combo and 1 haste. I don't think that's truly that magical overall. I think it's not going to bring that much value overall. Like, it's 1 haste, 1 7 combo. Not that great. Royal Oak gives you 3 Ls, which I think is completely excessive, unfortunately, because Royal Oak doesn't even make Ls for them. Doesn't want to use Ls. They like Rose more. But it gives you 2 turns of haste, which is a little bit better. For Nautilus, it's a VDP, and now a VDP is incredibly unique because now you stick this VDP on top of a card like, say, Halloween Chakiel, who has double 10 combo but no VDP. Now she's a double 10 combo with a VDP. Maybe you want to slap this on your like Yin Yang Dragon Ryunsai. They have 10 combo, 777 combo, no VDP. Now these incredibly hard-hitting cards can actually hurt Void spawns. Pretty cool overall. It only gives 1 turn of haste, but again, if you need to have a way to overcome Void spawns for those hard-hitting cards, 1 turn of haste isn't terrible. It's basically an effective skill boost, so not all is lost in that aspect there. Daytona gives double TPA, which is obviously great for TPA teams, but it gives 3 turns of haste, and now we're talking good stuff. 3 turns of haste is a big amount of haste. Doesn't give a skill boost, but if you're a TPA team, this is actually a meaningful weapon assist. And then finally we come to Blackbird, and Blackbird has double enhanced dark combos, so a significant boost for your dark teams when matching multiple combos, and it gives you a single turn of haste, so not quite as magical. If they all gave at least 2 to 3 turns of haste, they would become much better. Like Nautilus's VDP is so unique, only card in the game that does this, and 1 haste is still okay, but if it was 2 or 3, this weapon assist would just skyrocket in terms of viability. Next is Chrono Turtle, and this is a card I haven't thought about in a long time. But it gives you a co-op boost, so co-op teams could rejoice, a bit of movement time, and it does give you a big damage reduction for 1 turn, so you do need shields. So it's not a terrible weapon assist overall, but it does cost a giant or huge, it costs an exceptionally big gem of some kind, so it has a higher opportunity cost, unfortunately. Weejas, in both their forms, actually give you a second of movement time and 2 unique killers. 2 unique killers is actually still pretty cool overall, with especially the fact that they do increase the damage output of that given card against that respective spawn. They also give a 2-turn delay, and along with remove or block and changing the board to light and hearts or wood and light. So actually a pretty powerful active skill alongside, so it can be 2 effective skill boosts if you can delay floor 1. Not a bad aspect overall. Next is Norn, Verdandi, and Skuld. And they're all essentially identical except you change the board changer color and the orb enhances. So I'm just going to only talk about one of them to save time because they're like the same thing. They give you a board unlock. They change the board to their respective colors. So it's like red, blue heal for Erd. It is green, fire green hearts for Verdandi, and then blue green hearts for Skuld. Different board changer, all depends there. Bonus movement time, and pierces through the damage void for 2 turns. So, if you're playing a team that needs void damage void for a specific aspect, these weapon assists can be potentially helpful, but again, they do require an exceptionally big gem of some kind. I think it's the giant gem. But skill boost is nice, movement time is nice, passive damage is always nice. Again, if you don't need resist for a given team, it's not a bad weapon assist to slot onto your respective monocolor teams to take advantage of the quite lucrative passive damage, and a skill boost is always a good thing to have. Next is Light Kali, and Light Kali's weapon is actually quite exciting, and this is a weapon assist that I feel I might make pretty much right away as well, even though it does have a higher evolution material cost, because it gives you a second of movement time, which is nice, full bind immunity, which you need for the vast majority of leaders nowadays, and it gives you 80% blind resist. That's a unique combination. That is definitely going to make your life much easier when team building for specific things. Like, for instance, Nautilus teams, you don't naturally have blind resist. Slap this on your Nautilus. You're bind immune, which you wanted, and you have this blind resist. Quite nice awakenings overall. And then the active skill is more preferred for rainbow teams. But again, if you inherit this on top of like Nautilus, Royal Oak, etc., you don't actually care about the active skill itself. You just cared about the awakenings, and they're quite strong. For Dark Kali, her weapon assist is interesting. Gives you a skill boost across a second of movement time. The active skill gives you a 3-turn delay, which obviously can be helpful. So skill boost, 3-turn delay, not bad overall. Gives you a board unlock and all attribute change. It can be situationally helpful, but I don't think it's as magical as her light form. For Red Mille, or Miru, whatever you want to call her, it's unique in the sense that you have 3 seconds of movement time. I think this is the highest of anything in the game, possibly, or one of the highest. It's an absurd amount of movement time bonus. It's like giving yourself the Pad Pass badge. Cool. Cool. And then the active skill gives you void, damage absorption, and attribute absorption for 2 turns. So it's something you actually do need to have. So if you are playing a team that is struggling for movement time, it's not a bad thing to equip on a given card because the active skill itself is going to be utilized, I think, pretty much guaranteed in almost every dungeon. For her light form, she gives you double skill boost. And this is the only card that actually gives 2 skill boosts through a weapon assist. But the problem is it's a 1-turn cooldown. So if it overcharges, you delay your own active skills by 12 turns. That's unfortunate, but it's 2 skill boosts. Nothing else gives 2 skill boosts. And I can see this being utilized in highly situational farming builds where you've mathed out the skill boost perfectly, and then the base card itself can utilize their base skill and never overcharge. Possibility there. Or if you're playing it through a dungeon like, say, the Battling Artist, which is going on right now, they take away your assists for 1 turn. That means if it overcharged on a given card, they take the assists away. Now you can use the base active skill itself. And again, if you're struggling to hit the skill boost threshold for whatever team you're using, maybe this will come in handy. Again, it's the only card in the game that actually does this. So if you can make it work and never let it overcharge, it is fantastic because nothing else can do what this does. For Reiwa, their weapon assist gives you a bunch of HPs for that given card. And it's not as effective as like team HPs, unfortunately, but it's, I guess, something. It gives you a universal buffer, which is, again, helpful if you need to have an attack buff and a movement time and an RCV buff. Not terrible at all, and you get a change the world aspect, too, which may be helpful, potentially. Could overcome spinners, but with the 3 times or movement time, you probably could overcome spinners. So, like, it's, I guess, kind of cool, but the opportunity cost, that's an expensive gem. Maybe in, like, 6 to 9 months when it's cheaper to get these gems, maybe I'll think about this weapon assist. And now we look at upgrades for existing cards. So, Albrecht has, in his green form, a cooldown reduction, if I'm not mistaken, and they give an attack buff, a movement time buff, and removes orb unlocks and changes 6 non-orbs, hard orbs to wood. It can be cool, but like I honestly feel like their blue form is really where it's at. Their blue form is just this best form for Albrecht, and the buff is huge. It goes from a 6 to a 5-turn cooldown. Anytime your cleric goes down in cooldown is amazing, and they also have other benefits. It's not just a cleric active skill. It gives you an attack and an RCV buff. It solves many problems. A 5-turn cooldown. Blue Albrecht is amazing overall. You can definitely utilize them on mono water teams or even other teams as long as you can like take advantage. Like rainbow teams can use them. Like why not? Like Super Awakenings give them a skill boost plus. So 4 skill boosts, full cleric, lots of movement time, big personal damage, great active skill. There's no losing. Like this is definitely a great upgrade. I'm happy I have one. I still can't get a blue one to spawn on Mantastic'c somehow. Maybe one day I'll get it. That's okay. Zeal or Ancient Dragon Knight has a weapon assist in their base form. It gives you a TPA, an enhanced wood combo, enhanced wood orb, and it also gives you an active skill that removes locks and changes fire and hazards to wood. I wouldn't want that to overcharge. Maybe if there's a wood-based TPA team in the future, maybe. And then for their reincarnated Zeal form, they actually have potentially huge amounts of personal damage. They have double 10 combo, 2 TPAs, and 4 enhanced wood combos. That's a lot of damage when you're matching multiple wood combos. And their leader skill is not bad. It's 20 times attack. So like in theory, if you have a steady stream of wood orb generation and you can make 2 wood combos on a regular basis, you could potentially, smash your way through some content. It's not like the greatest farming team out there, but like it's farmable. So like I guess that's worth mentioning at least. And speaking of farmables, we have Echidna, and Echidna has a weapon assist, which is not something I think I would ever use, unfortunately. It gives you, like, 20% resist and 3-turn delay. This is not enough of anything, unfortunately. And then in her more evolved form, you have 20% resist to Jammer, Blind, and Poison as well. Some healing solution, some blob power, can get us another 7 combo or VDP. Like, and a 3-turn, like... I'm just not going to be able to utilize this anywhere. Like, this is not, like, 2018, I don't know, just, like... We expect more from a card nowadays. Valten, in their more evolved form, has like potentially double 10 combo, which is kind of cool. Lots of enhanced fire orbs. The active skill gives you a weird ability with their leader skill because the active skill is a 2-turn cooldown that lets you swap them into position as your leader. And their leader skill can be 30 times attack multiplier, which is quite big. You have a big HP multiplier, And if you take a single hit when you're above 50% health, you will instead survive. This doesn't work against multi-hits, it only works against single hits. So maybe you can find a way to cheese some dungeons by like swapping him in and then swapping him out as needed. But like, I think it's pretty situational overall. For Cottons have, base Cotton has received a Blob Awakening. So, 777 combo with the Blob means they can deal large amounts of damage. They have an active skill on a 3-turn cooldown, gives you no Skyfalls, an RCV buff, and removes Orb Unlock and changes Dark and Hazards to Heart. Not a bad active skill by any means, at least it does provide that RCV buff, so that can be helpful if you need to slot it in. But, I don't know, like Cottons I feel like are just not as great as they used to be. For their colored evolved forms, they all received a similar buff, and I'm just going to look at one of them and like just imagine the colors are different for each respective color. Their awakenings have 777 combo, which is not enough for anything, follow-up attack, which has kind of lost its edge, and I feel it's only got 2 skill boosts. The voice awakening doesn't do much, the stats are not that great. They still can get a blob, and all of them can get blobs, so blob-based teams may find some merits out of Cottons. And their active skill does give you that no Skyfall, RCV buffing, removes the unlock, and then changes some orbs. Like, it changes something to their primary color, and then changes something else to hearts. And this applies to all the respective Cottons. So, it's not a bad orb changer by any means. It also gives you an RCV buff. Maybe you can make arguments, and they have a low cooldown, but, like, I think the Cottons are just still situational to use as subs. Like, I wouldn't be going on, I can't really foresee a place where I'd want to use these Cottons as my subs over other options. For their weapon assists, they have now, if I'm not mistaken, an enhanced heart combo beforehand or more enhanced heart orbs. They gain something, I forgot what it was, but it gives you bind immunity, a follow-up attack, 2 enhanced fire orbs, and an enhanced heart orb. So like a bit of healing solution, a bit of passive damage. The active skill itself gives you an RCV buff and a huge shield for 1 turn. 2 things that you want to bring on a given team, so it automatically makes this weapon assist reasonable overall. And then it also removes the orb block and then changes something to their primary color and then something else to hard orbs. Again, all the Cotton weapon assists follow this exact same template, so they're not bad weapon assists by any means. They're cheap and easy to make, but like I haven't really used mine for a long time, and I don't really foresee myself using any at this point in time. Still, like, it's nice, but I feel like I need other stuff from my weapon assists, as wild as that sounds, like resist, skill boost, or something like that. And now, if I'm not mistaken, we just come to, like, buffs for active skills. No, wait, we're not that far yet. Never mind. There's so much to go through. So, Miru or Mille in one of their forms, or all their forms, now received a weird buff to their active skill. It gives you a board unlock, creates 7 light and hard orbs, and then gives you plus 29.5 seconds of movement time. They could have been plus 29.7 seconds. Like, why not fit in that 297 theme? Like, they were this close to greatness, and they just missed it. I would have been like, cool, if it was plus 29.7 seconds. That would have looked more aesthetically pleasing from a pad point of view. I would not be able to use this card effectively anywhere, unfortunately. Like, there is no real reason to use them. It's, yeah. For Red Mille, she does have the board unlock, creates 3 fire and hard orbs, an attack buff, a movement time buff. It's okay, but like, we need more. Like, she has 10 combo, 777, some TPAs. Like, it's not enough. It's not solving, like, I can't really foresee a place where I would want to use them over other subs at this point in time, because the TPAs right now go to waste. Red teams are either combo-y, like Seawolf, or blob-based overall. Next is Air, and Air received a buff. They have more enhanced heart orbs, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and like they do some damage when below 50% health, but their stats are terribly low. The active skill does give you a 5-turn bind, Awoken Bind, and Unmatchable Clear, Orb Unlock, and then change the top row to hearts. Air was a great card, I don't know how many years ago, and like it's just not going to catch up to where she was at one point in time, unfortunately. Shelling Fords received an interesting buff. Green Shelling Ford does comical amounts of damage against God-type spawns. Like, comical. Triple God Killer, 10 combo, another 10 combo Super Awakening. Like, what the fish? Like, gods are just going to die. Cool. But, again, highly restrictive. It's not something I would want to use, and their weapon assists are just much spicier overall. The active skill does give you movement time RCV buff. It removes locks, so, like, it can be a useful active skill, but, like, he's too railroaded to killing gods. If he had more Awakening diversity, could be a bit more valuable of a card overall, I feel. Light Shelling Forward, the only thing that matters, in my opinion, is this active skill. And it gives you 2 times attack and void damage void for not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 turns. If I'm not mistaken, this is the only card in the game that gives you 5 turns of void damage void. That is huge. Farming builds love to like make full boards and swipe and just ignore VDPs and abuse combo orbs to get bonus combos. So this can be monstrous if inherited or used as a sub, but the drawback of a sub is it's only 2 skill boosts, doesn't knock it any from the Super Awakenings. If you just inherit them, it's 30 turn cooldown. So a long cooldown, unfortunately, but again, if you can find a way to actually utilize it, it's 5 turns of void damage void. There's nothing longer lasting than Shelling Forward. So it is interesting and unique, and it does lead me to believe that I should possibly keep one of my Shelling Forwards in this form instead of weapon assists. Red Shelling Forward received buffs to their awakenings, but like it's a lot of L's, a lot of unnecessariness, and in all honesty, they're just better served in their weapon assist form. So all their weapon assists did receive buffs. They received an extra 20% resist of some kind. So Green Shelling Forward has 60% blind and poison with that skill boost, and it gives you a full cleric style active skill on a 9-turn cooldown with an unlock and changes wood, dark, poisons to wood. No, water, dark, poison to wood. Not a bad active skill. Useful awakenings. Shelling Forwards are good in their weapons. Light Shelling Forward has 60 jammer, 20 blind, skill boost, and their active skill is now a 23-turn cooldown that gives you void damage void for 3 turns and 3 turns of haste. I can definitely foresee this being utilized well in farming setups where you need to have void damage void, and the haste can let you recycle back up a key active skill. And on a 23-turn cooldown, this is much more manageable compared to 30 turns. But again, yeah. And then for Red Shelling Forward, 60 poison, 20 jammer, skill boost, still the same beautiful 4-turn delay. If you can delay the first floor or an important floor, Red Shelling Forward is never going to disappoint, assuming you can use the poison resists. And now we come to Sophie's. Wow, there's so many cards. So, Sophie's received significant buffs, and her base form gives you an attack buff, RCE buff, movement time buff, so universal buffing, great. And 1 turn of 50% shield. Wow, that is actually pretty nice overall. And all Sophies receive the ability to take the 5 attribute awakening, super awakening. So, 5 attribute, that's 4.5 times personal damage on top of their large personal damage to begin with. Exciting stuff overall. And in fact, all the Sophies, I'm going to just talk about like the Sophie evolutions, like all the colored evolutions. They're basically the same in terms of the buffs, so I'm going to save a bit of time by just talking about one of them. So they all now have, they're all a universal buffer in terms of attack, RCV, and movement time. They always had that. They still have that. But on top of that, they get 50% damage reduction for 1 turn. That's huge. You're solving so many problems from a single card. They also have large personal damage through a 10 combo, 7 combo, and 4 different killers. They all only have 2 skill boosts, so be mindful of that. But to make everything even more exciting, they all feature 7x6 leader skills. And this 7x6 leader skill is important for like leader swapping into position. If you have, say, Prim, Red Sophie is probably going to be one of your best options for Prim teams because Prim wants 7x6. Matching red and blue is desirable. Sophie will deal huge amounts of damage on her main and her sub-attribute. You have a great buffer. You have damage reduction. You have a respectable leader skill on 7x6. You get 1.5 times stats and damage reduction. So like it's not the best, but it should be serviceable enough to keep you alive at the beginning. Low base cooldown. All the Sophies are magical, so you can choose like 7 combo or 5 attribute awakening depending on the type of team you are playing. So monocolor will take the extra 7 combo. Rainbow teams will take the 5 attribute. And the same applies to Light Sophie, Dark Sophie, and Green Sophie as well. But Blue Sophie is unique and different and quite well suited for rainbow teams. She has 10 combo, 7 combo, 4 killers, but her active skill is a little different. It gives a 2 times attack buff for just sub-attributes, a movement time, and RCV buff, so it's not quite the same as a universal buffer, but still great. It also gives you a full Awoken skill bind clear. That is magical overall. So it's like a cleric. You can even use this on your mono water teams potentially if you really wanted. So I'm quite excited for this card. If you have a great way to solve unmatchable, you know what? Pair this with an unmatchable solver and you're going to have a good time. A Telly, for instance, can clear unmatchable via TPA. So Sophie may be a great solution as your cleric who also provides the 7x6 board. Big stuff all around. So Sophies as a whole have become incredibly strong subs, but leaders in the sense that you enter in 7x6 and then swap in someone else. And now we come to Cecilias, and Cecilias also received huge buffs. Cecilia in her base form gives you a 9-turn cooldown that gives you a single spinner for 2 turns, 2 times movement time, and voids damage absorption for 2 turns on a 9-turn cooldown. That is pretty nice. So you solve a couple of different problems: time debuffs, damage absorption, spinners if you like them. You also get 777 combo and the ability to take a VDP or a 10 combo Super Awakening. Not bad overall, but I feel like her base form is definitely going to be overshadowed by all her colored forms. So all her colored forms are nearly identical in the sense that they have 10 combo, 7 combo cross, 2 killers, a super resist of some kind, but they all have identical style, leader skill, and active skills. So I'm only going to talk about one of them, and again, just go through each one individually to determine which color is best for your individual team. So we have Cecilia with their active skill giving you a spinner for 1 turn, an attack buff, a movement time buff, and an RCV buff. A universal buffer with a spinner. This is great stuff all around, and that spinner can be helpful if you need to fish out orbs, or if you don't like spinners, you want to overwrite lots of spinners on a given board. Their leader skill is also a 7x6 act leader skill. So again, similar to Sophie idea, you enter with 7x6, leader swap someone else into position, and their awakenings are huge. They could have, like I said, 10 combo, 7 combo, and killers with cross. They can get either a VDP or a 10 combo Super Awakening. So monocolor will probably take the VDP. Rainbow teams, if you're using this for those swaps, you'll probably want to take 10 combos. Or if you're a team that, can ignore damage void for whatever reason, like Prim, for instance, will ignore damage void. So the double 10 combo in Cecilia's case will be meaningful. As a whole, all the Cecilias are incredible subs for their respective monocolor teams. And the fact that their leader skill gives 7x6 opens up those swapping possibilities. And again, all the Cecilias follow this exact same template. So it's a matter of just choosing the color that works best for your individual team. And then lastly, it's just buffs to cards that I already talked about. So I don't think I really need to talk about because they're super reincarnated or they're more evolved forms feature the active skill buff that is here. So with that being said, there's a little bit, New Year's Aten has one more skill boost pre-transform, which I guess is kind of cool, and their leader skill is a little bit more interesting. But with that being said, this is a tremendously long video. This is possibly the biggest amount. Look at me scrolling super fast. So many things got buffed and upgraded in this current patch. Incredibly exciting. And with that being said, let me know which cards you found most exciting and which cards you found most surprising to find that, wow, suddenly you are usable once again. Regardless of all that, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.